around and discover where are the opponents and occasional kill maybe T1s and so on.
Okay. Right, so what about their team leader, Arklet?
I really like Arklet because he's a really cool guy. He keeps the temperature on the team really low. So if someone tries to start raging, he's gonna cool that guy down. So he's like the rock of the team. Just leading the team by example, playing either T1 or IS3, depending on the map. And if he plays the battle tank, he does the job.
Well, he is. He's definitely a friendly giant. And we've actually, looking like we're running out of time, as Burnout Empires, we can talk about them while we're watching the map picking, as it's actually going down right now. So, first of all, Burnout Empires. These guys are underdogs. We don't exactly know too much about them. Tell me through what you know about them, though.
I know that their two best players are brothers, and that's the kind of synergy which could be good and which could be bad sometimes. But I like the fact that they're brothers. That brings a good synergy between the team.
What about their experience? Have they got any players on their team that's had multiple experiences or anything like that on the global scale, or even just high-profile matches? Do they have enough experience to pull them through today?
We still thoroughly see what they have and bring to the table. What I'm really excited is the play styles between Europe versus North America. North American teams are playing more aggressive gameplay, whereas the EU teams are playing more passive. So now these two players are going to collide. So that will be really interesting.
Well, we're going to find out soon enough as we see the ban steps and Ruinberg are gone. Is that an expected ban set?
Yeah, for me, they're really expected. We didn't see steps in the Season 4 finals, like maybe once. I'm not 100% sure. And Ruinberg, not a lot of teams like to play Ruinberg, so yeah, I can say they're very expected bans.
I'm looking forward to the city maps. I would like all city maps to be played, but Ruinberg actually is not going to be played, which kind of surprises me. But Ruinberg can be a ace up your sleeve defensively, because you can defend really good your map on Ruinberg.
Yeah, so the maps are now picked. Cliff is the soft ban in 5th place. We have Himmelsdorf, Mainz, and Pokrov as the first 3. Himmelsdorf, first map, classic. Everyone knows it. If you've ever played the game, there's no way you don't know what Himmelsdorf is. So take us through a standard play on Himmelsdorf. For anyone who's new to watching the esports side, take us through a standard battle on Himmelsdorf.
Himmelsdorf, usually North team sets up in the northwest corner in the map and waits for the first move from the South team and react on that. So it usually comes down on the South team to do the first move, but sometimes we might see he'll play from the North too. So we just must wait and see what happens.
What sort of tanks are we expecting to see here, Bessa?
We expect standard lineups, probably 2 IS3s with 3 5100s, the best autoloaders in the game, and maybe some 110s, but I doubt it.
What about the new tanks? Obviously, not so long ago, a big patch was released with the light tanks. Is this the map we're going to see them on, or are we going to see them in some of the open maps?
I don't think so. Definitely on the open maps, not in the city maps.
Why not? What makes them not viable on the city maps?
In city maps, it all comes down to those corner peaks with the heavy tanks like Tiger's trees. And when you want to push out, you want to have the HP of a heavy tank like 1500 and IS3, and of course the maximum damage of the whole clip of the MX 5100. So light tanks are not really an option.
Right, so let's take it from the south position. So in the south position, we're expecting to be the aggressors. The north position is going to be defending in normally the northwest, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're expecting to see. What could they do from the north that's different, that's unexpected, that maybe could surprise an opponent? Next time.
They can rush the middle very aggressively and cut the map from them, because the south spawn, the south team usually takes control of the map, and we can see some really aggressive play on the hill with maybe 4 tanks going up the hill, 1 watching the 8 line or something like that.
Any alternative tactics that you might want to throw into the back?
Many M&A teams have been trying 5 battle tanks on the hills, so that might happen too.
Well, I do remember the golden days of the T69, where basically always, and I mean always, there was a T69 versus each other on the hills. Can we see that with the new light tanks, maybe? One of them take the hill and firing down those massive HE shells maybe down below? I mean, the top armor of those tanks are pretty weak. They might be able to get some good damage from there. Is that viable at all, Vetso?
Well, actually, you can use a T-49 with the 152 millimeter gun, which deals an extreme lot of damage, but I doubt it. I don't think so.
What's so vulnerable about that tactic? Why did that tactic fall from favor? Because even after the nerf, it was used quite a lot. But why keeping the T-69 on the hill was vulnerable? Why was that a bad thing? A lot of teams did it for a long time, but then all of a sudden, it no longer worked. What was the shift in meta that made that not viable again?
Why they shifted that out was
Well, normally, every team sent a few to the hill. Always take the hill. It was really important. But then, recent time, it's like, forget the hill. It's not really important too much. So what was that shift in meta? Like, what caused that?
If you go to the hill, it will take long time to meet the enemy. So if they're pushing from 1, 2, 3 line, you are too late to defend your base. So they might get 3 tanks to your cap, 2 tanks are in front of the captors, so it's really hard to come back and defend your base. So it's a risky tactic to put a lot of tanks under the hill. So I think that's the main reason teams don't do it anymore.
I mean, I remember Fnatic from the North American server, that team in the grand finals, when they were competing, they made the mistake. They had 2 tanks on the hill in Himmersdorf, and by the time they came off the hill, their entire team was dead, and then 2 versus 6 is not going to work very well in their favor. So I'm guessing, even though some teams are still trying it, it's not working. So do we expect that from this North American team, though, considering Fnatic were the #1 for the grand finals? These guys are going to be playing in a similar playstyle, if anything. So maybe we'll see some hill play from them?
Maybe we will, but SchoolBus is excellent in timing their attack. So if Bernal Empires puts two tanks up the hill, and SchoolBus can crush those 3 tanks down with all 5. They just know the timing to attack them.
Right, so we're talking about SchoolBus have great timing, and they're really good in that. What if Bernal Empires was a perfect team, and they had infinite resources and infinite skill? What do they have to do to be able to break that? Do you have to sit back, wait for their position, be aggressive, put them off their feet? Some teams have a big weakness. What is SchoolBus? Have you been able to figure it out?
Well, I think I would be playing here if I would figure it out completely, but yeah, it's a hard thing to do. So it's balancing between is this good thing or is this the better thing? So you always need to work out the best of the situation.
So you got an opinion on this matter? How can they do it? How can Bernal Empires burn this empire?
It's really hard to read their gameplay. And even if you read your gameplay, you have to outskill them, which is even more harder. So it's gonna be tough for Burn of All Empires, but I wish them good luck.
I think that's the best thing you can say right now. They have some titanic teams to deal with. Remember out there, don't forget about the social media, Facebook, Twitter, hashtag Rumble in the West, RIWTW. There you go. Say Rumble in the West, take the first letters, you've got it, it's easy. But focusing on the next few games, because it's not decided in one battle. Himmersdorf isn't the end of everything. So what about the open maps? So they've got 2 reasonably open maps coming next. What can they do there? Is the playstyle totally different?
The open maps will be easier for Burning Alone Empires because in city maps you need to have perfect coordination. But in open maps, even if you're a bit sloppy, you can work your way out. And I think in the open maps we'll see the new light tanks like the RU-251 because that tank is an excellent tank.
Well, I cannot wait to see that. But first, we have our Himmersdorf battle, game #1 of Rumble in the West, NA versus EU. So it's time to go into battle with your 2 casters, Lauren and Ollie. Take it away, guys.
Thank you so much, all the guys obviously up on stage and the awesome dudes there on the analysis desk for breaking down what we're going to be into today, and there's a lot to look forward to. SchoolBus, pretty much one of the best teams going out of the European region, constantly tested by Virtus Pro, but always coming out pretty damn good. Up against Bernal Empires, a team not many expected to get to this point, but all of that stuff aside, I'm sure we'll see that once we get into the game. Let's actually break down the maps we're going to be watching. Himmersdorf being first. I've got to point out, Bernal Empires don't have the best record through their regular season on this map, so this could be a tough one because I think you know better than most how damn good SchoolBus can be on this map.
Yeah, I mean, Himmersdorf is all about timing at the end of the day, and I think Bernal Empire's biggest weakness is timing. You'll often see, one side they'll be going really fast, one side will be going very slow, and they don't really link in the middle. So Bernal Empires will have to overcome that weakness to actually be able to put some damage onto SchoolBus. So really, it's going to be an interesting couple of battles. Of course, Bernal Empire's second seed from North America and SchoolBus first seed from Europe. He qualified automatically by coming first in the Season 4 WGL Finals, so indeed the best team you can expect. Already pushing onto the hill near you, Apawao, Armley, all heading up. They are starting from the north, so they can actually get out there much quicker and already get some shots down near you, taking the hold down positions at the beginning. Static in the far, just ready to try and receive him if you can. But the AMX 5100, pretty heavy lineup altogether from Bernal Empires. Be interesting because they are a very aggressive team if they actually can pull this one off and do some damage.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what they can bring on this one. SchoolBus, maybe not one of their best maps, but then we still have the likes of Apawao. As Vetso pointed out, great lone wolf player, constantly doing damage in that 3090. Looking forward to see what he can bring. But early on, is there anything surprising us here? Or is this kind of what we expected from Bernal Empires? Slightly passive, slightly waiting on SchoolBus to make that initial move.
Well, Bernal Empires is doing what European teams do quite a lot at the beginning. Just trying to get themselves some initial positions with the MX 600s behind. SchoolBus do some shots at the beginning, and then they just try and like stay back, go forwards when they can, and really try and get some information from the SchoolBus instead of the other way around. Obviously, Eratai is actually in the tier 1, proxy spotting Apawao, who's going to have to try and retreat and reload in that in the MX 1390. So a little bit of the same start as we expect on Mines. SchoolBus, of course, the favourites by quite some margin here, but I think Bernal Empires, their speed and their ferocity could actually be a big plus for them here.
Well, I'd like to see that in action. They're looking pretty passive right now, but that's no surprise. It's something we came to expect on Mines. It's been a bit of an adaptation that came through, but we are seeing a little bit of movement. Let's bear in mind, Zone Delta is starting to edge forward, so they're not going for that complete passive strategy. They're not just leaving it to SchoolBus to make the move. So, and that's not a bad thing. The amount of times we've seen teams who do eventually roll off that kind of defensive position in the south to get some sort of play going, they do tend to come out on top a little bit. But I worry when people like Apawao, Dark God Zim are already in some, well, not necessarily forward position, but they're certainly waiting to see if there's a counter move.
Yeah, Dark God Zim maybe be receiving the MX 3090 if they can try and get the MX 3090 up on the hill. SchoolBus will have the option of going for the cap, of course, once you have that high ground. It's a big plus, it's a big advantage in this game. And teams really need to utilize that. We saw, for instance, C-Play on steps. They used the Waffle Tiger on top of that mountain, basically. They managed to climb up there. That's really the innovation these teams can bring out. But you can see already Bernal Empire starting to creep forward. Zone Delta on that T-32, great hold down tank. The best player on that team, indeed. I mean, 1,400 average damage per battle. It's better than anything SchoolBus has. As you know, Apawao only hitting 1,300. So actually the best player in terms of statistics on this matchup. But he's gonna have to prove himself a lot. And in that T-32, it's not the most dynamic tank. He might not be able to get himself into a good situation when he does have to push.
No, and let's bear in mind, we are using, if you guys are familiar, the Grand Finals format that we used previously, where it's, you know, a lot of times the first couple of maps aren't necessarily played for that instant aggression, because you can obviously suffer a lot of loss if you do go for that early aggression. It doesn't pay off. But this is something I want to point out. Real here is trying out something a little new.
Yeah, it's the RU-251, one of the new Tier 8 light tanks brought out in 9.3. So a very fast tank, very good tank. I think overall it's one of the best tanks that's ever been put into the game. It really doesn't have any disadvantages. Good rate of fire, good damage, decent penetration. I guess that's its only weakness because it has to use heat ammo. 250 can struggle against the IS-3 and the T-32. Very fast, you can hit 80 kilometers an hour, so you can actually outrun or catch up if you turn it around an AMX 1390. So all around a very, very good tank, obviously up the German line. I definitely recommend you researching that one if you haven't got it already, even worth free experiencing it, because it is such a fantastic tank. And I think we'll see it featured very heavily this weekend.
Yeah, and just in case people are obviously new to this, what would that be taking the place of in its regular position? Is there a tank that it automatically outdoes?
Well, it takes the place of an MX 1390, basically. It doesn't outdo an MX 1390, it's just a better overall tank than an MX 1390. I mean, that French tank can do a lot of burst damage, but it's not as consistent. It's not as fast. And it's, you know, the 251 is an easier tank to play. At the end of the day, the easier tank is to play, the better it is, you know, if you kind of think about it, especially if you can really max it out in terms of skill level. So I'm wondering what they can actually achieve with it. You can see that the 251 is basically going to be roaming around the map. You want your best players and your best light tank players, just because they can take full advantage of all its benefits.
Then again, we are still seeing Apoel sticking with the 1390, so clearly not wanting to adapt across too quickly. And I brought this point before in discussion that some of the more kind of settled in their way teams, such as SchoolBus and VersePro, may be slightly reluctant at this sort of situation just to pick up a brand new tank. So a couple of shells going through, not too much action so far. We have 4 minutes left in this. Is there an option you see here available for either side to make a move?
Yeah, I think we'll see SchoolBus pushing us in at some point. They've got good positions on the map. Apoel's also roaming quite a lot. Arclit's in the heavy tank sitting up in towards the middle, and I think he can push off pretty easily. But I'm just going to really see if they can make that first move. Apoel now heading back around towards Armley and Arclit. Dark God's in near you, spotting out Zone Delta in the T-32. And I thought Bernal Empires would make the first move here, because they were saying in the pre-game interviews that they are an aggressive team, and they want to bring that to SchoolBus, because I honestly don't think that they'll be able to beat SchoolBus on the normal kind of EU-RU tactics, you know, being very careful, being very considered. The only way you really beat SchoolBus is showing them something they haven't seen before.
Then again, would you want to get that done straight away? If you wanted to go for the aggression, get yourself used to the stage. There is a gigantic crowd watching these guys. Bear in mind, Bernal Empires probably aren't used to a huge hall of people paying attention to their every move. If I was them, I'd try and get in there a little slower. Maybe take your time on mines. It's not maybe the most easy one to draw out if that's your intention, but it doesn't automatically give one side the instant win. So that's what maybe I'm assuming from these guys. It's dangerous to allow SchoolBus complete free reign. But then again, we have seen teams starting in the south do have a position to play if you want to be defensive. There is a viable strategy for it, as we're seeing in place. So it's nothing too new. SchoolBus arguably could undo this, but then again, do they want to go completely aggressive? Do they want to risk dropping that first map? Because we've seen the likes of Apoel and Co pushing across that Lighthouse Island, or other teams such as Seaplay utilizing that mountainside on the east side of the map, just kind of hopping up there and laying down fire. So there are definite ways to get into this map, but it's risky, and with 2 minutes and 25 seconds, I don't see that being a viable option now.
Well, GeForce, the team captain of Bernal Empires, has already lost half HP in that T-32, so it does give SchoolBus a little bit of a way in if they can try and focus him down pretty quickly. Apoel's on the side, Armley's joined in now, pushing forwards, both from the I3, goes first, of course. It's got the most HP, it's got the most armor. Near you, Arclit still on that mountain. They are going to go for GeForce first, as he has low HP. Shanish also joining in with the hit squad. And really, that's such a weak link, because we usually see 2 tier 8 heavy tanks up there, but because one's gone to the right, he's going to be completely unprotected.
Yeah, this could be dangerous. And look at this, the Lone Wolf himself heading in first. Apoel looking dangerous in that 1390. Going to completely face down GeForce to go in. Apoel landing shell after shell. Can he continue this? He's got him tracked. He's got him held. He doesn't immediately have backup. The rest of his teammates are arriving. And look at the damage. There goes GeForce. So that is the captain down and out. And Apoel claiming the first. 1 minute 30 is their time for this.
I think they can actually be able to cap this, because Zone Delta's below. He's actually pushed up. I mean, they really can't deal with Arclit and near you. One tank still capping, that's Armley in the base, Azrael Rural, and that 251, the MX-3090 heading back up, and that's really what they have to do. Try and get the cross shots, try and get Armley down, but honestly, SchoolBus can do the damage on the side. Next target will be Delta.
First map, base race on the go. This is what we wanted, ladies and gents. Zone Delta in a little bit of trouble here, bearing in mind he is out in the open, and that's Arclit on him right now. So we're all now falling back, trying to thwart off this cap, and they have theirs going on the moment. 66 seconds for Bernal Empires, 71 for SchoolBus. They retract back. Azrael now may have just fallen into a trap. 3v2, Azrael is down, decimated, and Morel now 1v3 has to deal with Apoel, Shanish, and Armley. This is a disaster for the American side coming into this, but can they claw it back? Static comes to help him out, but 97 seconds, 48 on the cap. They're going to try this one. Can they pull this off? 33 seconds left, Ollie. Is there a chance here?
Well, Static just about gets away with that one. Armley's going to have to wait for another 5 seconds, and he can get the reload on. Last shell coming out from Static now. He's got 2 left, actually. Bouncing that one on Armley, and Armley comes off reload, takes him down as the last tank falls for Bernal Empires.
SchoolBus doing what we know they can, picking up maps like that, seeing a weakness and exploiting it. We ran through the options available to them. They sent out that hit squad, and it was damn on point.
It was beautiful. They saw the weakness. They did some good initial damage onto GeForce and the T-32. He was on half HP. Apoel came around, did the damage, Janish was there in the background. Okay, they lost a tank in there, the MX-1390, but it really was a clear-cut victory for SchoolBus. Arclay did a great job on that T-32, keeping Zone Delta in his T-32 on the hill, stopping him from going back. And at the end of the day, that's why you see EU teams put the T-69 or the MX-5100 behind the base in those houses to actually stop the cross coming on from anyone that wants to push up and actually get the damage onto the heavy tanks. So they need to be thinking more outside the box as opposed to just thinking what they can do within the next 30 seconds.
I hate to say it, but to me it looks like they kind of watched a couple of games for Bernal Empires and they saw that passive strategy from the south. Maybe the Kaznakru guys often brought that out, every now and then. You saw Elian as well back in the day. Him now loving doing that in the new side. And they had that passive hold. And it looked like maybe Bernal Empires saw that. They saw, okay, that kind of worked, but they didn't see the intricate details that really make it so strong. As we said, it's pretty much one weak link in that chain, and there's the exploit the SchoolBus will find. And I fear that even if Bernal Empires have done their homework, they have got new strategies, they're coming into this with the correct attitude, they may lose a little bit of that kind of edge that comes with the strategies by not fully being able to understand them yet.
Exactly. You should never base your strategies on other teams. You should make the best strategy you possibly can and execute it well. I think Bernal Empires, they went for the EU RU style there.
Yep.
They tried to do it, and of course it didn't work because they didn't fully understand, as you said. I said at the beginning as well that if Bernal Empires want to beat SchoolBus, they can't beat them in their own game. They have to play their own game to actually beat them. They have to be aggressive. They have to do what they said in the interviews. They have to play their normal style we see in the WGLNA. And that's pushing forward. That's catching the other team by surprise. That's making Zone Delta, putting him in good positions, making him do the good plays, instead of kind of adapting to what other people see. And that's really what I want to see on the next map.
Well, let's start discussing that next map and also kind of give ourselves a little bit of a bigger picture here, because let's look at the stats here. Mines for Bernal Empires wasn't a bad map through a regular season. 2 wins out of 5 games. It's not the best, but it's certainly okay. They can get away with that. However, Himmelsdorf, as we were discussing, they're 1-9 in their regular American season, let alone against the best of Europe. That's a problem when especially SchoolBus are so strong on Himmelsdorf. They have been one of the teams that have constantly pressured the likes of Virtus Pro, who have had that as a stronghold for years. Is there a chance here? Is this going to come down to them trying something new and bringing something out that maybe SchoolBus haven't expected?
I think, honestly, Himmelsdorf is very hard to play all round, and I think Bernal Empire's weakness is they don't play into Himmelsdorf at all. They lack sync, they lack timing, and that's where Himmelsdorf needs. You need to push on both sides if you're going to split push. At the same time, you need to be hitting the shots at the same time. And remember when Virtus Pro played SchoolBus in the Season 4 finals, Virtus Pro pushed, and the only reason why SchoolBus actually won that match is because Apoel managed to get behind and reset the cap, and that's the timing they had. Arclay pushed forwards at the same time, managing to hit the shots, and I don't think Bernal Empires can really do that at the end of the day, but we can see what they want. I mean, they've learned their lesson that they can't play SchoolBus at their own game on this one, so they're going to maybe play a little bit more aggressively, try their own tactics, and see if that one can work. But of course, as you said, Himmelsdorf can be very tricky, as this is one of SchoolBus's best maps.
Yeah, it certainly is, and you've got to worry, because I think when we were doing our homework here, we were watching back on some of those VODs, and I was watching Bernal Empires with that execution. They once again were able to near on undo something that the European teams love doing, the kind of northwest hold on Himmelsdorf. They love doing it, they lock it down. And they had the 3-2 split that almost worked, the 3 tanks going in down the central line and 2 down towards maybe the railroad side. They try and make that all-in push, but their timing was truly off. And as you can see, Himmelsdorf is a beast of a map. It's nothing to be sneered at. So we're going to have to find out if they can bring it home. Now, Bernal Empires, it's all down to them. Let's bear in mind, SchoolBus came into this knowing that they're the favorites. They had everything to lose, but picking up that first map is a sigh of relief. They know now they're comfortable, at least in this one, and this is one of their better maps. Your predictions in this?
I think SchoolBus will be able to win it if they play aggressively. But if they play passively, I think Bernal Empires might be able to do something here, because Bernal Empires will be setting their own pace basically in the game. But it's going to be an interesting one, I think, indeed. Starting from the north, it's going to be Bernal Empire. So they have the option of going to the northwest side in A4 and actually just camping it out there and maybe waiting for SchoolBus to make that first push. But it'd be really interesting if SchoolBus can actually overcome that hurdle and still push and still win. Unlike we saw their counterparts Virtus Pro do in the Season 4 final. So that's going to be my main object of interest in this matchup.
Well, it's going to be something to keep our eyes on, and well, in the north it will be Burn All Empires in red. In the south, in blue, it's going to be SchoolBus, and as you said, it has to be a good initiative play coming out from Burn All Empires. So far, what are we seeing them kind of bringing to the plate here?
Pretty standard start, Azrael pushing forwards, but a little bit more aggression from the right side. And G-Forcer in the left with the tier 1. Static, Zone Delta, Eretai, all the best players from Burn All Empires are there. And Delta in that 110 actually, very interesting pickup there. Good frontal armor, but may struggle from the side. I think the IS-3 is a little bit of a better tank, just harder to play. So we'll have to see how that works. But Zone Delta going forwards, it's obviously trying to play to the strengths of that tank. Plenty of front armor to have fun with. Maybe going to get a couple of shells onto SchoolBus, who've placed Arclit and Chanish there in the IS-3 and the AMX5100 towards that left side.
Yeah, a lot of focus there towards the west side of the map coming out from Burn All Empires. Not something we often see to this aggressive state, at least so far, unless there's an immediate push coming off the back of it. Normally it's either that hold right from that A to C line, or you see the straight up play. They're kind of somewhere in the middle, which is kind of interesting to me, but I am looking at the likes of Azrael to land some of these shots. I remember watching some of the WGLNA VODs, and actually he was able to smash some of those shots right into the likes of where Armely is playing currently. So I'll be interested if he can kind of replicate a little bit of that. They did then initiate the push down the 3 line and across the G line and tried to actually kind of make the most of the damage they achieved. However, it's going to be an interesting one to see if they can pull off. Obviously, a tough opponent up against them. We're going to have to see how it works.
Wow, now finding his way onto the hill. AMX5100's up there. Wow, try and hit a couple of shells. Hits a couple onto Azrael, only one connecting though. 1 out of 3 is not great. Oh, a couple more connecting into him. He's having to reverse back. Might be a little bit too late as he's trapped.
This is dangerous. Azrael's been caught out. Applewell there and Dead Hunt. You can see the damage coming in. One more shell and he is gone. Azrael is out of the game. And now, you've got to say it, Burn All Empires need to pick up the pieces here. There's trouble ahead, and they look like they're maybe doing a little bit of a desperation push.
Yeah, Zone Delta pushing forwards in that 110. Static behind, but only one support. Armley's going to be able to hold on a little bit, but they weren't expecting that. Arclit does have the cross.
Yeah, but Zone Delta's taking a little bit of fire on the push. Arclit still sitting fairly pretty, going to back away, try and create an immediate setup here. And look at this, Zone Delta held. Static comes in. They are going to crossfire, and there is no escaping this. Zone Delta, one more shell from Chanish lands, and now Static is pretty much in the lion's den, and they are hunting him down. A couple more shells. You can see he's fighting as hard as he can, but they're being ripped to shreds here.
And Static's going to go down any second now. Chanish is on reload, but Armley comes back in the IS-3, takes him down. G-Forcer, the only combat, G-Force and Real, the only combat tanks left for Burn All Empires. Not a single one lost for SchoolBus at this time. G-Forcer trying to make something happen, and honestly, unless they get the cap somehow, I don't see how Burn All Empires can come out with a win here. As Armley and Applewell closing for the kill.
Yeah, it's a dangerous combo to have coming up against you. Applewell and Armely about to peek out at the same time. You're not going to land both of those shells. G-Force trying to back away a little here. As you said, there's a couple of combat tanks in this one. Maybe a draw could be an option. Possibly, but then again, caps always come into play. There's very little left here for Burn All Empires unless they can pull off a miracle. And then again, there's a lot of HP still with SchoolBus.
There's plenty of HP. You have to be careful that Chanish doesn't go too aggressive. Armley's going 1 versus 1 against G-Force. Of course, Armley's got a lot more HP, and G-Force is on reload. Only waits for that shell. He doesn't want to reverse out too quickly. About 50-50 each. Applewell now joining in the fun as well. Near You finally gets himself into the battle, and they're just pincering on into Burn All Empires.
Yeah, G-Force, he knows he's in trouble. There's no escaping this one. It's a matter of time more than anything. And one more shell, he is down and out. And ladies and gents, another map goes to SchoolBus. They are looking formidable today.
Well, Applewell, simple tanks onto the hill, got the shots down onto Static, and well, not Static, Eretai, he went down pretty quickly. And you have to say it, you shouldn't get caught out as a top team in that position. We've seen it time and time again where tanks have put themselves into the middle and they just got taken down very quickly, and that's what Applewell was playing on. And as I said before, as a top team, you should not be there, you should know what you're doing, and you should expect SchoolBus to go onto the hill and try that at least at the beginning.
Well, let's bear in mind, what is the normal counter to stop teams doing that? Because more often than not, there is an IS-3 around that marker, but how is that normally stopped to allow to stop Applewell being able to peak that sort of angle? Is it the fact that normally they send maybe a tank at least up towards the hill to meet them? Is there counter plays that maybe Burn All Empires once again should have put into practice?
Yeah, you should put some pressure onto the hill for sure. That's how most teams do it. They basically go for the hill at the beginning, try and take that advantage, take the high ground, and then play it from there. I mean, at the end of the day, you can drive it as far forward as you want, but you're still going to get shot in the tracks at the back. So you basically can't be in that position. The only way you can get around it is actually play right onto the 8 line, right onto the banana. But we haven't seen that so far. And of course, that was a tough lesson there for Bernal Empires, and pretty easy stuff for SchoolBus. Yeah, they lost a tier 8 tank, but it really wasn't of any consequence. And when Bernal Empires pushed into that cross onto Arklit and Shanish, it was pretty much game over. And Zone Delta, their best player, went down very quickly. But 2-0 now to SchoolBus, not an entirely unexpected result. But 2 in a row now, SchoolBus has been the aggressive team at the beginning. I did not expect that.
No, I completely agree. I thought Bernal Empires would come out and really bring something a little different. You know what I mean? Try and not necessarily replicate the EU region, but bring that little bit of like an American flair to it. Do something. And let's bear in mind, we've always seen Simp, we've always seen Fnatic. It'd been nice to see a little bit of personality play coming out from the American side that's not just a replica of the EU or Russian region. I wanted a little bit of difference there, but sadly, it seems that they've kind of fallen into maybe the comfortable area of just kind of doing what they see others doing, but yet not quite having that effort towards it at the end. But we're going to start discussing their next map coming up, because it's pretty much do or die time in this sort of situation. And it's Prokhorovka. Now, what can we make of this map? I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites of SchoolBus on. I think they've probably got very good results on it, but I've never seen them being brilliant compared to some maybe others. But what do you think we can take out of this one? Is there a chance here now? It's a very open map.
Well, SchoolBus don't really play Prokhorovka that much. It's not played that much on the European region, full stop. They try and avoid Prokhorovka. We see it banned out, and we play steps at the beginning just to get the map out of the way as quickly as possible. So it's going to be really interesting. Bernal Empires did play Prokhorovka in the finals against the Cunninghams, actually lost on it. And it's going to be a question of if they can repeat good, solid performances like they had on that map. And honestly, I do think Bernal Empires has a little bit more practice on that map, at least recent practice, which gives them definitely a +1 against SchoolBus, who are perhaps lacking a little bit in that position. It's just not seen a lot in Season 4, so I think it's a definite weakness. You're going to see those RU251s come out, maybe a T49, but a little bit too big for a T49, I think the map in general, a little bit too open. And I think it will more like to see the German tier 8 light tank, and perhaps the Russian one as well.
And I'm curious to see if SchoolBus actually pick that new tank up. Bearing in mind, they skipped out on mines and they did perfectly fine. They're yet to kind of embrace maybe the newer tanks coming into this one. Maybe we'll see it on Prokhorovka on next, and well, it's match point map as well. If SchoolBus pick this up, GG.
Yep, it's best of 5. We need those 3 wins to go through to the next round. Of course, that'll be the finals if SchoolBus do pick it up, with the loser going to the 3rd, 4th place match with whoever loses the next one. So here we go, 2-0 up. From the south, it will be Bernal Empires, and from the north, it'll be SchoolBus.
Yeah, and what can we take away from this straight away? What is the play we're expecting to see? And are we seeing any of those new tanks picked up for the SchoolBus side? Because Bernal Empires ran it before, are SchoolBus trying out now?
Well, SchoolBus actually done something pretty interesting. They picked the 416, which is something we've seen on Prokhorovka before, mostly from the south as opposed to the north, so pretty interesting pick up there. 251 is coming from Static. So he just to get the initial spot. Doesn't find anything at the beginning. He does find Shanish in the T32. That's the only one he finds, but that's not a big deal. I think he expected to be spotted. And Shanish just make his way up into the middle area. Of course, the T32 very slow. Azrael looking for a couple of shots. If he does peek too much, he'll be taking a fistful of damage.
Yeah,
Dead Hunter also being spotted. A couple of shells that come out. Only Dead Hunter going down there in a T1.
Not bad early work, though. Let's bear in mind, those T69s have their position on this map, and well, as we're showing it. But the one thing that worries me is that SchoolBus looks like they may be slightly aware with that 416 now in play of the possible positioning coming out of Bernal Empires. Is there a counterplay that could be shown here soon, or maybe have Bernal Empires got a chance in this one?
They've actually got a good chance. SchoolBus have put themselves into the left. Shanish the one defending them, and they're basically using Shanish as a proxy spotter and a main spotter. Finding all the tanks they can in the middle, and then basically get the shots onto the left. Arklit there in the 416, 320 average damage on the M63. Plenty into the side of SchoolBus if he does hit, into those Bernal Empires if he does hit it. But it's going to be tricky for him altogether. I think he's got to be careful that he doesn't get spotted out as there's no bushes. Conflict heading up towards the right. He's going to meet Apoao if it does come down to it. And of course, Apoao will win that engagement a lot. So Goes down, doesn't even get spotted. Fantastic job from that player.
Well, let's see what we've got so far. At the moment, it looks like finally Bernal Empires are making the more aggressive play, and SchoolBus just being passive here. Let's keep that in mind. They are pretty much on match point, so it's all about now Bernal Empires making that move. So looking forward to see what comes out of this. Shanish still being quite a linchpin in this one. He is right amongst the opposition, well, quite near on actually. If he goes down, then it all kind of opens up. And to be fair to SchoolBus, they're playing fairly spread out. They don't have that close-knit kind of roaming squad they had before, and Real soaking up that shell. Not going to go down too early. Shanish maybe clearing up, and they're trying to connect these shots from range. Arclit and Armley back there. You can see Shanish as well. Just being careful, and it's a level of respect as well. Let's bear in mind these guys, you know, respect their opponent. They don't want to give too much away. They've evened up already, so it's looking pretty dangerous so far for both.
As Real zone Delta heading right, it looks like Bernal Empires want to try something here. Of course, the best option is to go towards Apwao. He wasn't spotted, but he did get the kill onto the tier 1 conflict, so they know he's over there. They don't know that Dark God Zim's there in the tier 1, so going to be interesting. Static also joining in the fun in that 2-5-1. So 3 tier 8 tanks heading towards the right. Apwao the target. Of course, Arclit near you and Armley are going to be able to get shots. Also Shanish, if he has to. Static getting spotted, tries to make a shot. Apwao does get the better of him in that situation.
Yeah, trying to zone out Apwao early on, probably not a bad idea, but he will be able to get away, and that's Apwao's kind of intuition. And what Vetso said earlier is the fact he's a very good lone wolf. He can be trusted to play these individual positions and then retract when necessary, and that's exactly what he's doing. He saw a little bit of a threat coming in then from the east side push, coming out from the likes of Static and Go, and he's just formed that group up. And look at this counterplay. Where are SchoolBus going to take this? You can see them all kind of rotating down the map towards the south.
They've basically been taking the tree road as far as possible. They're not really sure what's there, but because Bernal Empire's put a lot of resources towards the right side, they know they can take it without really losing too much HP. So Eretai will go down in tier 1 if he doesn't get away, which I don't think he will. And that means SchoolBus really do polarize the map with them, as we've seen a lot of times before, the southern team towards the right and the northern teams towards the left. And I think SchoolBus will then push through the middle and basically split Bernal Empires in half if they can. A couple of shells landing onto Wirral. He does take a fistful of damage. He's got to try and hide. He's managed to get out of there. G-Force providing cover.
Yeah, Wirral does use the Deflator, at least gets himself tucked down just a touch, but you got to be careful, as you said. This is now very polarized. We've seen the likes of Virtus Pro previously being able to work their way across this map, but can Bernal Empires do something similar? What's your thoughts on this? What are their options now?
Well, Bernal Empires can try and expect SchoolBus. Honestly, unless they go for a kind of a cap and a push at the same time, they've lost so much HP that SchoolBus will be able to obliterate them. I would say if they didn't lose so much HP that they can do the same thing SchoolBus is doing, basically just pushing through the middle and putting pressure on in that situation. But because they have taken so much, it's going to be very, very hard for them to win that mathematics game. As Eretai still alive somehow in that tier 1. Near you's got to be very careful. You know, you can't take anything away from Bernal Empires. They got a lot of damage in that team. G-Forcer does go down. And that will be 1 tier 8 tank down for Bernal Empires, giving SchoolBus a huge advantage. But look at this, Static pushing across. Near you's actually on reload there in the MX-3090, but he does get spotted early. He's got to be careful and try and get out.
Well, let's see if Niyu can go down. Static needs to prove his worth here because they need to get a advantage. You can see the back and forth between these two, and Niyu does have some cover, which may be an issue. Static a little low as well, and the rest of Bernal Empire is not really able to assist. Zone Delta's low. Real cannot peek. It's down to this 1v1, and Armley and Arclit are chiming in occasionally with shots. So you could maybe argue a 3v1 unless the rest can join in. But here comes Apwao around the back as well. You've got to be careful. Static goes down, and that's SchoolBus now taking the advantage further, and look at them just closing in here. They know they are moments away from possibly winning. So Real is down to nothing. One more shot, and he's done for. Apwao looking on towards Azrael, getting the shells out, getting the damage done. Real goes down. It's all in the hands of Azrael, and he is out of there. SchoolBus picking up the win, 3-0.